For decades, Minneapolis residents lived in fear of a serial arsonist, and police believe he set at least 73 fires.
But despite a long criminal history, the convicted arsonist served just under 3 months' time for his latest torching. How could that be?
Well, Fox 9 investigator Tom Lydon explains and talks with the man who reveals how many fires he may have actually set in the last 40 years.
It's like something right out of a movie or something.
For Robert Gruby, that movie played out last May in the back alley of a halfway house in North Minneapolis.
He took a burning log from that fire pit.
When his truck was torched by a roommate on a drinking binge.
He would come down and play the alpha male and be intoxicated, overbearing, and talking and bragging about his arson past.
Turns out this movie was a sequel, a fiery franchise playing for nearly 40 years. Unknown to Gruby, he was living with one of the most prolific pyromaniacs in Minneapolis, serial arsonist Alan Theodore Enger. And if you don't believe it, ask him.
I said, I'm Alan Enger, the arsonist.
Just don't make Enger angry.
Took a burning log out of the fire pit and threw it in his truck and walked away. Next thing I know, I'm in jail.
During the 1980s, along Central Avenue in northeast Minneapolis, a firebug was born. By 16, a sophomore at Edison High School, Alan Enger was charged as an adult with arson for burning down a neighbor's garage. By the 90s, he was torching businesses and homes. Neighbors living and sleeping in fear of the man they nicknamed Backdraft.
People couldn't sleep at night. They were scared.
He was walking around out behind the alley, carrying his chair so he had a place to sit and watch.
Enger was convicted of 4 separate arsons, but he was a suspect in at least 73 others over the years, including a massive blaze that burned down several businesses and apartments at the corner of Central and Lowry. It's a story I covered when I met Enger for the first time.
Police tell the Fox 9 investigators that's precisely Enger's MO, getting drunk and setting fires.
I ain't talking to these guys.
Why aren't you talking to me, Al?
What do you want me for?
Because we're interested in what you know about that arson 2 blocks away.
Where?
2 blocks away.
Up here in Lowry?
Uh-huh.
I don't know nothing.
One man even died from a heart attack while putting out a fire right next door to where Enger lived most of his adult life with his late mother, who was often his alibi and enabler.
And he was so out of it, they couldn't even rouse him, so how the hell could he be lighting a fire an hour before that? I know he's a total not only that, but he's just a good guy, but you can't keep him off the sauce.
But you could put him in prison.
This is a man who has terrorized northeast Minneapolis.
In 2005, prosecutors charged Enger as a career offender, calling him an uncontrollable serial arsonist, a danger to public safety, saying nothing in the criminal justice system can protect society from Alan Enger other than to incarcerate him for as long as possible under the law. Enger got 10 years in prison.
I don't know nothing about it.
Well, you're an arsonist, Alan. You live 2 blocks away.
When he got out of prison, he stayed away from fire until that day last May when he torched Bob Gruby's truck. Enger telling police, "That is what you get when you F with me," and kept referring to himself as the arsonist.
In that truck fire, Alan Enger would plead guilty to arson in the 2nd degree last July. It would be his 5th arson conviction. Just one problem. No one that mattered knew that. Not the judge, not the prosecutor. That's because in Minnesota, generally speaking, only convictions from the last 15 years are considered relevant for sentencing. It meant Enger was about to get the deal of his life.
With most of Enger's public rap sheet erased, a 28-month prison sentence was stayed. And instead, prosecutors gave Enger a plea deal, 120 days in the county workhouse. With time served and good behavior, he was locked up for only 78 days. 78 days for a career arsonist. The prosecutor assigned the case makes a stunning admission at Enger's sentencing, telling the judge, "You know, quite honestly, I didn't know Mr. Enger's prolific arson history going into this. I didn't realize he had all the previous arsons. I think 120 days is too low. I would never have offered that in the first place." had I known that.
I believe in redemption, and people have an opportunity to work their way. Frankly, we're a little surprised that he committed the same kind of crime at this point in time. Maybe we shouldn't be.
In fact, Enger could have been prosecuted once again as a career offender, which fell within the 15-year period and would have led to mandatory prison time. But Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman says the sentence fits what is essentially a property crime.
Every time we put a person in prison, it's costing $40,000 a year. And for this kind of crime, we felt that some workhouse time and having the rest of it hang over his head was the proper sentence. And I think the judge who makes the final decision agreed.
We spent weeks looking for Enger. Unlike the worst repeat sex offenders, the address of a serial arsonist isn't considered public.
I'm Tom from Channel 9. I'm looking for your brother.
We found Enger's older brother, Floyd, who was as stunned by his brother's plea deal as anyone.
They get their job to look up what people's history is before they, you should have got 20 years.
Well, that's what I...
Don't put that on TV.
Eventually, we also found Alan Enger, apparently sober and in a good mood. So we decided to learn all we could.
What did you think of the sentencing? What did you think you were looking at? What did you think when it happened?
Well, I thought I would get at least a couple years, if not 3 or 4. When they offered the 90 days, it surprised me, and I was going to fight it, argue it. So I'll take 90 days, no problem.
How many fires do you think you've actually set?
Quite a few.
I mean, are we talking dozens, or are we talking...
Oh, more than dozens.
More than dozens?
Yeah.
Hundreds?
That'd be fairly accurate. Yeah. Over 100.
His lack of remorse is just astounding.
Sean McKenna is a retired Minneapolis police arson investigator who followed Enger for his entire career.
Why do you think he does it?
He's an underachiever, and he gets angry, and this is the only way he knows to even the score in his own mind. It's his way of taking control. It's he gets some power now. And look at what I did. I set all this in motion, all these fire trucks, all these people coming out to see. I did this. I control something. I have the power.
And the odds were in his favor. Most arsonists get away with it. A crime with few witnesses, and fire destroys most of the evidence. Nationally, only 1 in 10 arson cases lead to an arrest, and only 1% lead to a successful prosecution. Enger is really the exception, the usual suspect. And those who know him best don't believe he'll ever stop.
I don't think you can ever rehabilitate him. Fire setters, sex offenders, child molesters, you don't rehabilitate them.
Do you think you're done setting fires?
Pretty much, yeah. I should have known better than to set this last one.
Enger has said that before. He told us he'll be moving soon. Doesn't know where, or at least he wouldn't tell us. And chances are, his neighbors won't know either.
Now, Enger was ordered to pay restitution of $6,000 and will be on probation for 2 years. The judge in this case, who had the final decision on sentencing, declined to comment on the case.